artistry is so elusive. And I know business people, oftentimes we want to say, it's this. But I think there's something also beautiful in being a bit in the gray area. And I encourage this type of initiative because what you just said, I think that's the difference, by the way, between creativity for me and artistry. Creativity is something we'll resolve with our mind. Artistry is something we do with our heart. And I think that what your designer did was actually a very smart thing, is that let's go back to what makes us tick. Why are we here? What we believe in. He spoke or she spoke to probably what motivates you from within, not what motivates you from without. Oh, we need to accomplish this by day 1 or day 3 or day 100. Like, why are we even doing it? So I think that art definitely is part of where I see artistry sits.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Listeners, today is a special episode. Normally, I interview an association CEO about their journey and the things their organizations are doing to thrive. But today, I'm speaking with Nir Hindi, founder of the Artian. And let me tell you why I'm speaking with Nir Hindi. I attended ASAE's MMC Plus Tech Conference back in May, and I attended Nir's session. The session was titled From Creativity to Artistry, How Meaning Drives Engagement and Loyalty. And let me tell you, it was easily the best session I attended at the entire conference. I went up to Nir and I said, I have to learn more. Please come onto my podcast. So Nir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joanna. I mean, I'm super excited and you are so kind.
Tell us about the Artian, because that's your business and you do so much with the Artian. So tell us about the business.
The Artian is actually my platform to deliver creative leadership development. And as we dive into the episode, the listeners will understand what do I mean when I say creative leadership, and actually what are some of the lessons, thinking, ways of operating that we can learn from the artistic world and actually bring in into business.
Nir, during the session, you talked a lot about business artistry, and I'm not sure I had ever heard that. It felt like really fresh content. So how do you define business artistry?
So for me, maybe let me go one step backward. How did I get to this concept? And then I will answer what I think it is. So, from very young age, I was really passionate about the arts, really passionate about technology and entrepreneurship, but education, our parents, our society channel us to choose what are we. I chose the entrepreneurial path, study economics and web technology, started different ventures, but slowly I went back to a relationship with the arts. And many of my friends became artists and creatives. And I started to notice something very interesting, that they thought in a very similar way to the way I was thinking as an entrepreneur. But I didn't realize, why did we separate this way of thinking? We have two creative societies over here that don't interact. So I embarked on a long time journey to kind of try to understand how the arts actually impact business, because the other way is very clear, how business impact arts. And fast forward maybe 25 years of curiosity and research and many conversation, I realized that art impact business in two main ways. One, innovation, and the other one is leadership. And let me tell you, how did I get to this business leadership? Because I started to notice that there are certain type of business leaders that look at business very differently than the MBA way of thinking, and I'm an MBA graduate. And what I've noticed is that this type of thinking oftentimes draws from the arts, has the relations to the arts, etc. So I coined this way of thinking as business artistry. And I always say it's not a philosophy, it's a pattern. And it's a pattern that I recognize among leaders like Walt Disney, Ed Catmull at Pixar, and Steve Jobs, and Edwin Land at Polaroid. And these leaders saw business not just as a platform for optimization, but as a platform for creative expression. And they brought artistic standards like integrity and observation and the perception and sensibility into what they did in business.
Okay, so for those of us who are not as familiar with all this, is there a difference between artistry and creativity?
Great question. Great question. For me, yes. And let me tell you why. Because, every time I said the word artistry, immediately people tell me, you speak about creativity. But it never felt right because there are creative lawyers, there are creative bankers, there are creative engineers. But when I looked at what Walt Disney did, or Steve Jobs did, or Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre at Beats did, it never felt the same. And this is what I came up with, and this is my invitation for the listener to think about, okay? What I felt is that creativity is about problem solving, about connecting the dots. It's about new ideas. And you might solve a problem and stop, and you might solve it in a creative way. But what I've noticed is that artists never stop when it works. Artists stop when it matters. And oftentimes, because art speaks to the human soul, art comes from the human soul, it's always about this extra mile that artists go to make something that matters to someone. So while creativity can give you the solution, artistry will give it the soul. And this is oftentimes when we see companies that, okay, we use them, we use their services, we use their products, but we don't really care about them. We are indifferent. But there are certain companies and organizations that we are attached emotionally.
Right.
And this, I think, what kind of artistry creates and what artistry brings.
So I might have an MP3 player from somebody, but the MP3 player from Apple, even the box is beautiful. Is that what you're talking about? For me, the whole experience of going into the store and buying the thing and opening it is an experience where I don't really think about the experience when it's from another company. You hear these stories about Steve Jobs saying every detail matters.
Yeah. So let me maybe kind of say something. I don't want people to think that there is only one company that did it, Apple. And obviously Apple perfected it. When I was looking to who are the people that inspired him, and I will answer your question through an example, I went back and actually saw that one of the persons that inspired him was Dr. Edwin Land, the co-founder of Polaroid. Now, Edwin Land invented the Polaroid in 1947, and that was a new technology. And one of the things that he understood is that how do you make technology in a way that is much more appealing to human, much more understandable, that actually speak a human language. So one of the things that he did, he actually hired women in 1947 from art schools and brought them to work with his science team. And that's to tell you that he understood that you need not only the engineering touch, but you need the artistic human touch. And some of it can be in how the product looks, which is aesthetics, but some of it can be about how the product works. When you think about Apple, oftentimes it's very easy to get caught by the beauty, and definitely aesthetic plays a role. But one of the things that oftentimes Apple made is how intuitive and how easy it was for us as humans to interact with new technology. And I think that's where oftentimes artistry sits, is that, is it human? Not only is it beautiful, because it might be very beautiful, but very complex. But I think the genius of Polaroid on Disney, etc., they were able to use technology in a human way to make it so intuitive for us to understand.
So you're saying that you can be creative with your problem solving, but it's not necessarily artistic.
Yes, 100%. Joanna, the question is, what is your orientation? Because I think the leaders I'm speaking about were never motivated by technological challenges. Because you can be very creative and motivated by technological challenge, and you will solve it, and you will do whatever it takes to solve this technological challenge, and it will be super creative. But nobody will care because it doesn't speak to us. The founders I'm speaking about were never interested in the technological challenge. It was always the human challenge and the human experience they wanted to create. And if technology didn't exist, they invented it.
Okay, during your presentation, one of the things that I absolutely loved was you said, careful design of even mundane moments can convey love, consideration, and respect. What do you mean by this? And is this artistry at work, that somehow a product, an experience conveys love, consideration, and respect?
I think that oftentimes it's in the small details that you actually can communicate with your clients. And I think someone worth learning from is Johnny Ive, the ex-VP of design of Apple. And I think that one of the things they understood is that when you open a box, that's the first communication you have with the company. And when you actually put extra effort to how your experience would look when you open the box, it tells you as a client something about the people that do it for you. One example is to think about is the chargers cable. It's like every company will give it to you kind of wrapped in a metal band, but Apple will make sure to wrap it so beautifully, so thoughtfully that you say, wow, it's like actually someone thought about it. So I think that in those moments that are oftentimes invisible to most companies, the companies that I'm interested are the ones that go the extra mile to communicate to you, Joanna, we care about you. So we took the time to invest in the box, in the charger, in the way you enter to the cinema, whatever it is. 100% I would encourage leaders. Where do you actually stop because it's sufficient? What will happen if you take one extra miles that most companies don't need, but you decide because it will speak much higher about who you are as an organization?
Nir, what would you say to somebody who says, yes, but that extra step costs too much? Or maybe our customers won't notice. They won't notice that we took the extra time to change the entryway of the building, for example, or whatever it is.
It's a great question. And over here, it's a discussion that always comes to play when you talk about business. Maybe the question is not only about does it contribute to the bottom line, but where does it contribute to the whole organization? And I think from that perspective about the investment in this is that customers tend to feel it. Customers tend to feel it and they are willing to pay more because you added a layer that it's hard to quantify, which is the emotional connection. So yes, it might cost you a little bit more, but I think the upside is much bigger because your customer will feel the care. It will create emotional resonance. Maybe even your employees will be proud of what they do. And I can give maybe kind of a small example from a research that has been done in Harvard University around musicians. And I'm saying musicians, but in a second, the audience will understand why I think it's also relevant to business. So they took orchestra, musicians, and asked them to play the piece as they normally do. And at the end, they asked the audience to rank them. And then they took the same orchestra and told them, now we want you to play it with a nuance that is more different and creative. That's it.
That's the only direction they gave them.
Yes. And then they were ranking them. The audience perceived it as a much better performance. The musician ranked themselves better, and the whole experience was better. So even though it was told to the musician, and they did something you and me never noticed, as a whole, it came across. Now imagine that if you are in your organization and you ask each one of your employees, I want you to put extra care in something you believe we should, and maybe our customers won't notice. Now imagine you have 10 people organization, 100 people organization, 200 people organization that do the same.
Wow.
Now, it's like, I believe in that. It's not that I believe, the fact that, let's look now in the numbers, the fact that Apple is the most valuable company in the world, the fact that Disney is like, I was just talking to my family, I'm here in LA, and they went to Disneyland. Disneyland exists more than 80 years. It was opened in 1956, and people are still going nuts for this place.
Right. They're there for the experience.
How many organizations can say we have a product that exists in the market 80 years? Very few.
Nir, we recently decided to revamp one of our meetings. It was a kickoff for a project because we felt like it had gotten a little too focused on the technical details, if you will. So I gave the task to my designer. And he said, I think we need to bring the heart back into it, added a few touches, and it changed the whole mood of the meeting. We did exactly the same thing. We covered the same things, but we changed the order and we changed how we opened the meeting. Is that artistry at work? Like it's our job to make sure that people feel like that was a good meeting. But I think at the end of one of these meetings, people walked out of there and said, that was a great meeting. And they were smiling. And it was my designer who designed the meeting.
It's a great comment because, artistry is so elusive.
Right.
And I know business people, oftentimes we want to say, it's this. But I think there's something also beautiful in being a bit in the gray area. And I encourage this type of initiative because what you just said, I think that's the difference, by the way, between creativity for me and artistry. Creativity is something we'll resolve with our mind. Artistry is something we do with our heart. And I think that what your designer did was actually a very smart thing, is that let's go back to what makes us tick. Why are we here? What we believe in. He spoke or she spoke to probably what motivates you from within, not what motivates you from without. Oh, we need to accomplish this by day 1 or day 3 or day 100. Like, why are we even doing it? So I think that art definitely is part of where I see artistry sits.
Nir, during the prep, you mentioned the word awe. And awe is not a word that I hear often. You hear about awe-inspiring places, out in nature, for example. But I've also read that awe is great for the heart, the mind, and even mental health. Why are you talking about awe? What does awe have to do with all of this?
It's a good question. And, sometimes I consider myself naive and romantic. I really believe business can be a force for good things in the world. It's not only the negative association we have. When I think about awe, I think about what is the role of business, for that matter, in creating it, or leadership. You know what? Let's focus it on leadership. And I'll give you one concrete example. A couple of months ago, I went to Florence, and I stood at the bottom of Santa Maria del Fiore, and I look at this incredible dome that I think until today is the biggest dome in the world. And what put me in awe is not only this incredible, beautiful dome, it's also the knowledge to know that the person who built it never built a building in his life. And what put me also in awe is to know that the leaders that sponsor it betted on his creative vision. And I think that in a way we lost in business, in organizations, whatever you want to call it, the ability to set a vision that will leave people at awe and to say, wow, I want to be part of it.
Yes.
So it's like, yes, everything is so technological, everything is so efficient, but in a way it's not human and it's not inspiring. It might be mind-boggling to see the technology works, but what will happen 5 years from now that it will become pervasive and everyone will have it? Where is the inspiration? And I think that, again, it's like setting such a vision that leaves you at awe, that you say, wow, I want to be part of it. It's something that we are missing. I don't want to sound like a new age. I really believe it builds better businesses.
What I'm hearing you say is that artistry can seep into every part of the business, that it's a different way of thinking. And the way it can improve the bottom line is that it really sets you apart because the experience is different. The way it makes you feel is different. And so people want to work for you And then clients want to affiliate with you and become your customer because there's something different about the experience. Nir, can a dry cleaner do this? Can a grocery store do this?
Yes, the answer is yes. I will give you an example. Joanna, and this is something I'm telling you now in our podcast. It's an example that I had in the original presentation for when I gave it ASAE, but when I was practicing the time, it didn't fit. So there is a beautiful movie called Perfect Days, and it's about janitor in the public toilets in Japan.
Oh, yes.
They have these Tokyo toilets. It's a project they brought. Think about awe and inspiration. Bring some of the 8 top architects in Japan to design public restroom. And this janitor every day wake up and every day clean those restroom like it's the most important things in life. He doesn't bring any creativity into it because he does the same. He doesn't bring, for that matter, any inspiration, but he's so intentional to make sure that this will be the best place for you. That for me indicates something about the soul, about the experience, about care, about humans. Even though it's something so mundane, but he take the time to put all the care and love and appreciation so the next person enter to the restroom will feel it. So per your question, I think a cleaning person can do it, a restaurant can do it, a supermarket can do it. There is a beautiful quote that I love by Joseph Albers, who is one of the most important artists and art educators of the 20th century. He said that I've seen, and you probably seen, a dress or a chair that tell you about the human soul more than an average painting or an average sculpture. And I believe that you can find in any aspect of industry someone that is much more artistic than artistic artist. And that's why I encourage people to look at what they do with the same kind of lens. Like, how can I elevate what I do, even if it's in the most mundane work that you do, as something that can be elevated?
I love that. So no matter what it is, if you elevate it a little bit, that's already artistic because you're bringing your heart into the work. So this janitor that made sure that every person who walked into that toilet felt the love, didn't feel any weirdness about being in a public restroom that we so often feel.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Highly recommend watching it.
It's a great movie. Nir, I want to switch to something different. You are a storytelling coach to founders, which I think is just amazing. What is a storytelling coach to founders?
So one of the things that I do in my work is that I work a lot with startup founders. Now, oftentimes startup founders speak with you about new ideas, about new business model, about there is a lot of newness into it, but oftentimes they only have 3 to 5 minutes to pitch it. So the ability to convey a vision has to be so articulated, but more importantly, more inspiring, specifically at the early stage of the venture, that people will get caught and inspired by the story, that they say, oh, you know what? I don't know if this idea will work, but the person is incredible. The idea seems like something that I want to be part of. So in my work as a storytelling coach, I oftentimes help founders to try to articulate not only the business aspect of what they do, but more importantly, highlight their motivations, their interest, their passion. If you start a company, there is something internal, not only external. That's what I try to do, to make what they do as something that people would like to be part of. In the startup context, it's the investor, but it can be also the employee. Think about the competition for employees. Think about their suppliers. Think about the banks that need to finance you. So storytelling has a lot of touch points.
So in 3 to 5 minutes, I have to tell the story about what I'm building that is going to be useful to society, but also show something else that I'm passionate about this, whatever, all the little details that will make me say, I want to be part of this. Oh my God, how long does this take, Nir? And
yeah, I mean, it's a challenge.
What do you do with the inarticulate engineer?
One of the things that I do is I'm storytelling coach for the Harvard Innovation Lab. And one of the things that I do over there is that I work a lot with technical teams. The challenge working for technical teams is they are so passionate, so knowledgeable about the science. But if we go back to awe, I mean, nothing in the science, for that matter, inspires the general public. It's what the science can do for us that inspire us. And oftentimes what leaders or founders need to do is to shift the perspective. Not how excited I am on the science. How do I make you excited about what it can do for you?
Wow.
And that's, I think, the challenge. And that's one of the things that many people need to understand how to do. How do I tell a story? Let's start with that. A story, not the best story, a story.
Well, stories move us. I learned in fundraising long ago that when you are trying to raise money for an earthquake, for example, if you talk about the tens of thousands of people affected, we become numb to the numbers. But when we talk about one little girl who lost her parents, the story of one person, that's what motivates us to give.
Exactly. It's in this, is that you bring it back to scale, something that I can relate to.
How does one get better at storytelling if they don't have access to the Harvard Innovation Lab or you as a personal coach?
That's, I don't want to say a hard one, but storytelling, it's also require also practice and attention. So, for example, one thing that I like to do is to listen to other keynote speakers and actually try to understand what is the emotional arc they actually do. And I try to analyze. But if I want to kind of give a tip to the listeners, is that instead of focusing on the numbers of we doing X, we achieve Y, ask yourself, why did you even start it? Why are you here? It's cliche as it sounds. Go back to basics. Remind yourself the motivations. And oftentimes, instead of speaking about the number, speak about the motivation. So if I would jump on a call with a potential member, I would say, okay, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I want to tell you why I joined. And maybe it will resonate with you. Bring it back to basic and tell also what motivates you. It's not to say that you should ignore what the customer wants, because you need to tell the story of the customer. But oftentimes, if you join for a reason A, which is not just a salary, most likely there is someone out there that it will resonate with them.
Well, for sure, listening to other people, getting to the why, and then practicing, because I think storytellers, maybe you were born a storyteller, but I know I wasn't, and I consider myself a storyteller, and it's taken years.
Me neither. And you know what? Over here, thank you for bringing it, because it's something very important. When people hear me talk about what I do today as business artistry, they say, wow, it's so clear, so articulate. For me, it's still not articulate, because in the last 25 years, I was needed to articulate and sharpen it. And one of the things I did, remember how I started my answer? Practice. So every time people ask me, what is this art thing you are talking about? And I pitched and I saw I lost them. Okay, so I need to try a different strategy. And then I tried the different, okay, over here, this one ticked. Okay, let's improve it. So it's a constant practice. And another tip, write.
Oh.
I'm not a native English. I'm positive everyone can hear it. So for me, writing was a huge challenge. And now, obviously, AI helps me to do that. But when you write and then you go back and read it, you see the holes and the gaps, the lack of alignment in your own story. And if you do it in writing, it's become easier to do it in speaking.
Yeah. Nir, I ask because I find that many of my association clients have unbelievably compelling stories, but they're not great storytellers. And if they were better storytellers, I think that their message would resonate more. They don't even have to change what they do. They have to change how they tell the story.
Yeah.
Nir, I could talk to you all day. So listeners, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a part 2 with Nir, because I think that all the things that he's talking about, business artistry, creativity, storytelling, all of this really is very relevant to associations. But then this podcast would get too long. So stay tuned for part 2 next week. And Nir and I will talk specifically about how business artistry can be applied to associations for greater meaning. Nir, thank you, and we'll talk next week.
Thank you, Joanna. Looking forward to continue this conversation.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends.